Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. Today, we prepared 4 brand new stories. In the first one, the husband started the topic of divorce. It didn't work out in the end. They lived 60 years of marriage, LOL. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Oh, you want a divorce? Okay. Probably about 10 years into my grandparents' marriage, the two of them got into an argument, which led to my grandfather angrily saying, "Well, I think I want a divorce." My grandmother said she stood up, walked over, grabbed a phone book, then sat back down at the table. As she flipped through it, my grandfather yelled, "Did you hear me? Are you listening? I said I wanted a divorce." She looked up and said, "I heard you. I'm just finding a good divorce lawyer for you." He never angrily brought up divorce again, and they were married for just under 60 years when they passed. Sounds like he really needed that lawyer. If you can't win at home, how do you expect to win in court? And our second story. Okay, call the police. Obligatory, this is my father's story, but it's quite a funny one. So when I was born, my father was stationed out in California, and we were living in military housing. This will be important. My grandparents on my mother's side drove all the way from Pennsylvania to help my parents for a few weeks since they were new to balancing children and work. My father and grandmother have always had a rocky, at best, relationship. She hit him with her minivan once, more or less intentionally. Well, one day my mom's at work and she took my grandfather with her. At the time, my father had a Siberian husky named Bear. This is important because my grandmother had recently read an article on why it's not safe to trust pets with newborns. It addressed concerns over the animal being jealous of attention. What ensued was a huge fight between my father and my grandmother about keeping the dog. Now, this dog had risked its life to keep a rattlesnake away from me already, without harm, and it was my father's best friend. So the answer was a hard no from him. Argument turned into a "this is my house" sort of thing, which is when my grandmother threatened to call the police and have my dad arrested for child safety issues. As soon as she said, "I'll call the police," my father gave her a smug look and said, "I dare you," and walked off. Well, she called the police. Keep in mind, it's a military base, so the police that showed up were armed military police. They proceed to do the normal describe the incident type thing. Now, my dad's a clever guy. He was a SEAL. You kind of have to be. He immediately told them, "Well, I dared her to call the police because she didn't like my dog." Bear's cuddling the other officer as they spoke. Well, it's not legal for an adult to call the police on a dare, so they took her into custody and put her in a cell. When my mom got off work, they resolved the whole thing, and they didn't mark my grandmother's record or anything like that. But needless to say, my father and grandmother don't really talk anymore. And our next story. Don't mess with my mom. My mom grew up in 1960s, 70s Michigan, then went to college to study to become a pharmacist, a very progressive woman. Also, I apologize for any possible plot points that may seem hazy, since it's been a few months since I last heard her tell this story. Anyway, in the early 1980s, my mom, who we'll call Sue, was studying at med school at a major Midwest university to become a pharmacist. One of the things that my mom has always had was a stellar work ethic and a drive to succeed, which showed in her schoolwork, especially when she scored a 100% on one of her midterms. The course whose exam she got this amazing perfect score on was taught by a professor that she didn't care for. According to her, this man exhibited very conservative, sexist ideologies in his interactions with his students, but was otherwise a solid teacher. Even though he was a jerk, my mom didn't let him get to her until she noticed that, despite her stellar performance, her overall score in the class was a C-, just barely a failing grade. My mom was pissed and confused, so she visited the professor's office to confront him. According to her, this is how the conversation went down approximately. Mom: "Hello, Professor. I'd like to talk to you about my course grade. I scored a 100% on the midterm, but my current course grade is a failing grade. What seems to be the problem?" Professor: "It's nearly impossible for anyone to score 100% on my exams, especially someone like you. You must have cheated." Mom: "Someone like me? I didn't cheat. You can't prove that." Professor: "Yes, a woman could not exceed her male peers' performance. And the fact that I can't prove it is why I gave you a failing grade instead of filing you for expulsion. Mom: Professor, that's bullcrap. You can't do this to a student who's fairly aced the test. I'll have you reported to the dean for discrimination. Note: I don't know if this was a thing back then, but she said she was going to report him for something. Professor: Look, if you can prove that you didn't cheat by taking my midterm a second time in solitude, then I'll alter your grade. If you score 1 point less than 100%, then your grade stays where it is. Although I don't understand your persistence in this when you should have been married by now like a good girl. Note: Mom was 24. Mom: Fine, have it your way. When do I take the exam? So my mom schedules to retake the same exam in a few days. She takes it, and for the second time, she aces it. This professor nearly blew his lid when he realized he had no choice but to grade her fairly, and she passed the class that final semester in med school with a 4.0 and graduates on the dean's list. Fast forward 3 years. Now my mom has made a career for herself right out of college with a pharmaceuticals company. She's worked hard for the past 3 years and has actually achieved a relatively high rank within her company's regional branch. VP of some sector or something. So my mom is at a pharmaceuticals convention in some city and everyone's wearing color-coded name tags. The color of one's tag indicates their rank/position in their respective company/field. She's walking around looking at the different booths and schmoozing with corporate or whatever, when who does she run into but her old a-hole professor? He recognizes her and greets her like nothing happened, like a professor would to any old pupil. She's polite and returns his greeting, noticing his friendly demeanor and wondering if maybe he's changed into a better person when he happily drops this question on her. So, where's your husband? Is he running a panel or something? She hadn't met my dad yet, but he's a doctor too, an anesthesiologist. Cute medical love, right? Immediately my mom laughs and says, I'm not married, I'm here representing my company, Drug Corp Incorporated. His smile drops when he looks at her name tag, so she looks at his and it's karmically satisfied for the second time when she sees that she is a full 2 colors his superior 3 years out of med school. He somewhat dejectedly bids her farewell and moves on, as does she. I love my mom. And our last story. You get what you deserve. In 2012-2014, I was an apartment building super/landlord. I took care of 7 buildings, renting, cleanup, painting, after move out, etc. I had a 2-bedroom apartment, 1 room for me and 1 for my son. A friend had just moved back from out west and needed a place to stay and work. I offered my couch for a while and even got him to help with my work chores and paid him so he could save to get his own place. I only charged him $200 a month and food supplied. He was only supposed to be there 3 months. During this time, I had to repeatedly tell him to leave my son's treats alone. He always said, sorry man, had the munchies, I'll replace them. He never did. At the main office, they knew I hired him to help me, and they were fine with it as long as it's just painting. After the next time he got into my son's treats, I took them all and put them in my bedroom and locked my door. I had to do my walk around to make sure all the doors were locked, etc. He texted me asking where the snacks were. I just paid him $400 the day before. I told him to go buy his own. He said he went to a bar and gambled all his money in the VLT, video lottery terminal, and now he's broke. He told me he wanted to get paid early for the next job, even though it was still a week away from starting. When he said that, I got mad and asked how he's going to eat with no money until then. I told him he should have saved his money and spent it wisely. I went back to the job I'd been working on. I had a few more hours to go. About 2 hours later, my boss called me saying my roommate called him demanding money for that same job. When he was told no, he lied to my boss saying, I've been collecting money for jobs I didn't do, upwards of $8,000. I was furious. I left the job to go talk to roommate, and when I got home, my apartment door was wide open, and what wasn't missing was broken, including some family heirlooms. All the food in the fridge was gone, and same with the pantry. Then, for good measure, he kicked in my bedroom door and took my son's treats too. I was beyond words. A few hours later, I tried to clean what I could in my apartment. I heard a knock on my door and opened it to see my boss as well as 4 police officers. My boss slipped past me and told the cops to follow. There was nothing I could do about it because of the contract. When she saw my apartment with my bedroom door kicked off the hinges, holes in the walls, broken items still needing cleaned up, She was upset to say the least. All of a sudden, I'm being handcuffed and taken to the police station for assault and battery. Part of my contract states I have to stay on the good side of the law. Getting arrested, I guess, went against the rules, so my boss fired me on the spot and told me to clear out my things. While at the station, I was shown pictures of roommate. His face was beaten badly. One of his eyes was almost shut and the other didn't look much better. I never touched him. The police took pictures of my hands, which had 0 injuries for court. The next day, we were in court, and he actually had a bailiff to stand beside him because he was terrified of me. His brother was with him as well. The judge allowed him to say his side, and then I was allowed to say mine. The things he said in court were so far-fetched that I was surprised by his imagination. Too many to name. When it came my turn, I showed the pictures of my hands without a mark on them. Then I pointed out that his brother's knuckles were all beaten up. When the judge asked him about it, he said he was doing mechanic work on his car and busted up his knuckles on a stubborn nut. The roommate even started to fake cry and asked for a restraining order against me, and I owe him $800 for the work he did for me. I had to keep books with money that was incoming and outgoing down to the cent. I showed this to the judge as well. The judge believed my side and said the roommate had to come up with almost $10,000 for repairs at the apartment, and he had to pay almost $500 in court costs, was found in contempt of court for lying and wasting their time. He got 6 months for that. He also got another 6 months for perjury. His brother got charged with perjury and assault on his brother. I was found not guilty, so I didn't lose my job. When roommate got out of jail, he took off out west again, and I haven't seen him since. I have a lien on his paycheck until it's paid off. 50% of his gross pay comes to me until I'm paid. Holy crap, dude! See what friends can do to you? I wish you the best. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.